Should a prospect initially balk when I tell them my rate? Okay, so I'm going to answer this. This is a very general question, so I'm going to answer it in a couple of ways. Should a prospect initially balk when I tell them my rate? So if you imagine a situation where you get an email from someone, you've got a website and it says you do, I'll keep using, you do responsive web design. You make mobile websites. You make websites that are very mobile friendly and also work on desktops, so on and so forth. So you do this thing with software that is potentially valuable to some people. And they come to your website, or maybe they're referred by someone and they fill out your contact form and they send you an email and it says, hey, we see that you do responsive web design. We would like to have you update our site so that the form fields are a little bit bigger. There's more padding. They're easier to type in. They call up the appropriate virtual keyboards. We'd like you to make the fonts a little bit bigger. We'd like you to add media queries. We'd like you to add responsive images. And they start telling you how to do your job kind of with this task list in the email. They say, hey, here's a bunch that we'd like you to do. You're probably qualified to do that based on what we saw on your website or what we heard from a past client of yours. What's your hourly rate? And usually folks, developers, will immediately get back to them with, oh, my hourly rate is X, Y, Z, it's $100 an hour, or it's $200 an hour, or whatever it is. And they'll say, and yes, I'm qualified to do all these things that you're asking. So what's weird about this is that if the client is asking for your hourly rate, they're already thinking about the wrong thing. So if they say, hey, what's your hourly rate? And you say $100 an hour, they might react with, oh, that's insane. I would never pay someone $100 an hour for this. Or if you say $200 an hour, they might say, oh, that seems reasonable. It's really, you haven't really told them anything that they need to make a purchasing decision, which is what you're leading up to. If somebody balks at $100 an hour, but you haven't told them how many hours are involved, you haven't given them a price of any kind, they have no idea, no good idea of what it's going to end up costing their business. So if you say, oh, I'm $100 an hour, and they're like, that's crazy. They're having an irrational reaction to that based on past experience at hiring people by the hour, or their mistaken assumption of how many hours it's going to take to do this list of tasks that they've sent to you. So when somebody does come to you and ask for your rate, it's incumbent on you to, if you want to get away from hourly billing and never have to deal with this again, is to say, well, I don't have an hourly rate. Would it be okay if we talked about your project and I gave you an actual price for your project, like a price that I'll stand behind? And I've literally never had anybody say no to that unless it was higher ed, like a university or a government agency who is required, in some cases, both of those types of organizations are required to solicit hourly rate style bids so that they can theoretically compare apples to apples. And they have a very rigid procurement process. It's potential, it's possible that you could get around it, but it's hardly worth it in most cases. So you either end up giving them an hourly rate, or you just say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'll send you to someone I know that bills by the hour. So of course, if you give somebody an hourly rate that they think is really high, they're going to have this bizarre knee-jerk sticker shock reaction to it based on really nothing rational. It's purely emotional, and it's so, emotions are important in this regard, but it's so crazy that it's really not that hard to talk them off the fence. As long as they have some control over their procurement process, I'm sure they buy lots of other things at a price. They buy toilet paper at a price, not an estimate. They buy paper for their printers at a price, not an estimate. They pay their rent ahead of time at a price, not an estimate. So they're used to paying for things that are not estimated. They're used to paying prices. So if you're going to work with them, I think it's in everybody's best interest if everybody knows up front how much the thing is going to cost, or how much they're going to have to pay for the thing, the desired outcome. So I guess my long answer to that is that I wouldn't give them a rate. I would say I don't have one, and instead talk about, what they're trying to achieve with the work. And if there's a good fit, then between, you, Mr. Client, and me, the developer, then I'll give you an exact price. You'll know exactly how much it's going to cost. You won't have to find out 6 months into the project that it's going to be twice as much as you hoped. Clients, in my experience, really like this.